I transmigrated to a world of immortality cultivation. I accidentally obtained a divine fruit that can grant eternal life. It's the longevity Tao fruit. I thought I could rely on this Tao fruit to climb up steadily and become an immortal ancestor eventually. But when my cultivation aptitude was being tested, a frosty immortal lady asserted, I lack spiritual aptitude, and was doomed to have no connection with immortality cultivation. I was totally confused. Yiqingyu noticed my reaction, thought for a short while, and explained, to put it in plain words, it's your comprehension ability. Comprehension. Just then an exclamation sounded. The one who spoke this time was a girl standing next to Yue Qingyu, a round-faced girl with 2 cute hair buns on her head. She was around the same age as me right now, and was naturally lively and active. During the time Yue Qingyu stayed in Shu Village temporarily, she got along with me very well right off the bat, and with some small games I remembered from my past life. I soon gained a little fangirl. The reason I could even start a conversation with Yue Qingyu was also because of Xiaoqier. After Xiaoqier exclaimed in surprise, she immediately spoke up for me, the big brother who, in her eyes, was capable of anything to defend me. How is that possible, senior sister? Brother Shu is super smart. He can do everything. He knows everything. How could he have no comprehension ability? That's impossible. Did you get it wrong, senior sister? I was also very confused about this. If she said I don't have cultivation aptitude, I would have understood that, but saying I lack spiritual aptitude and have no comprehension ability, isn't that obviously just brushing me off? Facing the confused gazes from Xiaoqier and me, Yue Qingyu shook her head gently. Being smart and having good comprehension are 2 different things. After saying that, she fell silent for a moment. Then she looked at me and continued to speak. All right, let me ask you. Hold your key in the dantian. Guide your energy to the purple mansion. What does wander the great void with your spirit mean? This sudden question made me freeze slightly. Then I thought for a moment and replied, it means you relax your whole body. Focus your attention on your lower abdomen. Empty your mind of all thoughts. And feel like you're one with everything around you. Draw in the essence of heaven and earth. Circulate energy through the heavenly circuit. What does turn key into liquid mean? Absorb the essence of the sun, moon, heaven, and earth. Let it circulate inside your body, and turn spiritual energy into your own spiritual power. After that, Yue Qingyu asked me several more questions in a row, and I answered each one of them. After finishing the questions, she tilted her head slightly, looked at Xiaoqier and asked, Xiaoqier, what do you think of his answers? When Xiaoqier heard this, her eyes lit up and stared at me with a face full of admiration. Brother Shu is so awesome. Wei Qingyu nodded slightly, then sighed softly and looked at me. This is exactly your problem. You're too smart. You already have your own set of cognition at such a young age, way more mature than many people who have lived most of their lives. If I hadn't checked your soul just now, I would have thought you were someone reborn by taking over another's body. When I heard this, my heart tightened. Luckily, I transmigrated straight into this body when I was a baby. If that wasn't the case, my secret would have been discovered. Just then, Yue Qingyu continued to speak. But that's exactly why you lack that little spark of inspiration. And that little spark is exactly the key to stepping into the door of cultivation. When I heard this, my heart sank. I kind of understood what Yue Qingyu meant. It was probably that I had already formed a set of self-cognition. I know everything. I can understand everything. But I just lack that little bit for everything. So I can't accept new things. That's what cuts me off from the door of cultivation. It sounds pretty reasonable at first. But if you think deeper about it, it feels like total nonsense. Asking me to give up the path of cultivation for this kind of reason. How could I be willing to do that? Fairy, you also said, I'm very smart. So can I make up for the missing spiritual aptitude? By studying hard, Yue Qingyu looked at me calmly. With your intelligence, you can achieve great things in whatever you do. There's no need to fixate on cultivation, but I still want to cultivate. Xiaoqier, standing nearby, also spoke up at the right time. Senior sister, please help Brother Shu. Yue Qingyu glanced at Xiaoqier, then looked at the unwilling expression on my face, and was silent for a moment. Spoke slowly. I know you're not convinced, and think you can practice cultivation. That's not entirely impossible, actually. But cultivation is like climbing to the sky step by step. Every step forward is a huge gap to cross, even if you work really hard to learn, and luckily get through the door of cultivation. So what then? Without natural talent and comprehension, you won't get far in the end anyway. Just when I was feeling desperate deep down, Ye Qingyu let out a soft sigh and went on speaking, well, meeting each other is fate after all. Since that's the case, I'll teach you a cultivation technique. Once you start practicing, you'll understand what I mean by natural talent. If you can manage to start cultivating through your own efforts and reach the 4th level of qi refining, that means I was wrong about you. You can come to Xuan King sect to find me then, and I'll recommend you to join the sect. With that said, he stepped forward and pressed a finger to my forehead and taught me a technique called the 5 elements breathing technique. Then he looked around, pulled a piece of dead wood over, used his finger as a sword, and carved it into a wooden plaque. He used his spiritual power to carve the character Yue on it. He handed the wooden plaque to me and said, just show this plaque when you arrive at Xuan King sect. Yue Qingyu's actions really were a huge surprise for me. I thought earlier that he was definitely turning me down by saying that. I never expected he would do this for me. I hurried to thank him. Yue Qingyu just waved his hand. He stayed in the village for a few more days after that. After making sure the village was safe, he took Xiaoquer and left. Maybe Yue Qingyu's judgment was right. As time went by, I focused on learning and understanding the technique he left me, but I still couldn't get the hang of it. I knew every single word in the technique, and I could roughly understand what they meant when put together, but I just couldn't do what the technique described, and sense the existence of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, to step into the world of cultivation, but I wasn't in a hurry at all. I have a longevity Dao fruit, so I have an endless lifespan. I don't believe that with my endless lifespan, I can't even reach the 4th level of qi refining, so I put the technique aside for the time being and left Shu family village. It's not that I gave up on cultivation, it's just that I remembered what Yue Qingyu said before. According to what he said, I'm just like an adult who already has his own set of perceptions. I lack the natural instinct that kids have. That's not something you can break through. With acquired learning, what they call natural instinct is something you're born with, obviously. After all, I'm living my second life. I was already an adult in my past life, and life had already worn down my edges. How could I still have a child's natural instinct? But I wasn't willing to give up just like that. So I decided to follow my own method to try and reshape my perceptions. After leaving Shu family village, I went to the city and started doing business. With the memories and knowledge from my past life, in just a few years, I became the richest man in the area. Then I used my wealth to collect books from this world and hired some teachers to teach me astronomy, geography, history, essays, Taoist scriptures, all sorts of stuff. No matter what kind of book it was, I accepted all of them and studied them carefully. I used the knowledge of this world to wash away the mindsets I had from my previous world. That's the idea I came up with. Even though this can't get back a child's natural instinct, it can wash away some of the perceptions that are holding back my cultivation. My method might be a bit unrefined, but I have to say it actually works. After years of studying, on the 10th year since I parted with Yue Qingyu, one night, when I was reading a Taoist scripture, I suddenly had a faint glimmer of insight into the cultivation technique I'd had zero feel for before, and started to understand a little bit. Relying on that flash of inspiration, I successfully sensed the existence of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. After months of hard practice, I successfully reached the 1st level of qi refining and became an official cultivator. After becoming a formal cultivator, I thought that as long as I kept practicing step by step, that would be enough. But it wasn't until this moment that I truly realized the natural talent that Yue Qingyu talked about and how important comprehension is for cultivation. I used to think that cultivation only required you to refine and accumulate the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and turn it into your own. Magical power and spiritual energy, that's all. As long as you have spiritual energy and resources, cultivation can progress in leaps and bounds. But after I became a cultivator, I finally realized I had it all so wrong. Accumulating spiritual energy is just the transformation of power. But to make a breakthrough, you also need a good grasp of your cultivation technique. Or rather, enough comprehension of the Tao. Once both your power and realm are sufficiently accumulated, can you keep moving forward on the path of cultivation? Even though I figured this out, I didn't really feel much about it. I have the longevity Tao fruit. I've got plenty of time to comprehend the Tao. There's no need to rush, so I took my time cultivating while also continuing to study and read. all the books and archives of this world. 20 years passed. His cultivation broke through to the second level of chi refining. During this time, I saw off many elders from Shu Village. Another 20 years went by. It was also the 50th year since I parted with Yue Qingyu. My cultivation broke through to the third level of chi refining. At this realm, I felt even more how difficult cultivation is, because breaking through from level 3 to level 4 of chi refining has a very important threshold. It's called Wendao in the cultivation world. That means combining your cultivation technique with comprehending the Tao rhythm of heaven and earth, like observing the endless flow of streams, the vitality of ancient trees, the rising of raging fires, the solid weight of mountains and rocks. A full 50 years went by. I watched mountains and waters, but never gained any insight. Until one day, I took out the wooden plaque Yue Qingyu gave me and stared at it all night, when I suddenly noticed the character Yue she left on it seemed to carry the Tao rhythm of a dead tree reviving in spring, and my main attribute happens to be wood. It turned out this wooden plaque wasn't just the token Yue Qingyu left for me. It was also an opportunity for Tao enlightenment. After understanding her intention, my cultivation jumped straight to the fourth level of chi refining overnight. Then I took the wooden plaque and headed in the direction of Xuanking's sect. 100 years passed. I wasn't sure if Yue Qingyu would still acknowledge our old agreement. I had no idea what to expect. After all, recommending a 100-year-old to join the sect as a new disciple is just way too absurd. But no matter what, I wanted to give it a shot anyway. When my wooden plaque was handed to Yue Qingyu, Little Sparrow from back then happened to be there too. With Yue Qingyu's reminder, Little Sparrow remembered where the wooden plaque came from, and she recalled the scene where she used to call that young man Brother Shu. Her ears immediately burned up, and her expression grew odd. Then she said to Yue Qingyu, "Senior sister, that Shuran is so shameless. He has zero self-awareness. You took pity on him back then, so you gave him a chance to cultivate. Not only is he not grateful, he even took that casual joke seriously. Now 100 years have passed, and he's only reached the fourth level of chi refining. He's probably already an old man by now. Asking you to recommend 100-something old man to join the sect? Isn't that just putting you in a tough spot? Why don't I go give him a few bottles of pills and send him on his way?" Yue Qingyu looked at her after hearing this and spoke calmly, "Junior sister, since it was a promise. Then he fulfilled the promise and came to us. That's only right and proper. If cultivators care too much about gains and losses and everything, and don't fulfill their responsibilities, how can they go further on this path?" Little Sparrow's face stiffened when she heard that and was just about to explain herself, but Yue Qingyu had already picked up the wooden plaque and headed down the mountain first. Her face changed slightly when she saw this and hurried to follow. Yue Qingyu arrived very quickly. After she saw me, before I could even say anything, she raised her hands first, formed a Tao seal, and said with a smile, "Congratulations, fellow Taoist Shu, for making the great leap and stepping onto the Tao path. Since you've reached the fourth level of chi refining, fellow Taoist, it's obvious I judged you wrong back then. According to our promise, I will recommend you to join the sect. I hope you'll keep working hard on your cultivation after joining and reach great heights soon." She brought up the promise on her own and completely ignored my age. She even treated me just like any other new disciple and encouraged me. This made me, who had been nervous this whole time, let out a long sigh of relief. I quickly thanked her immediately. Yue Qingyu just waved her hand lightly in response and replied, "You should also understand why I taught you that cultivation technique back then. The fact that you're standing here now is all because of your own hard work." I know he meant he was dead sure I couldn't cultivate back then. That's why he passed his cultivation technique to me. But as far as I'm concerned, no matter what his intentions were, he's still my guide on this path. Right after I bowed to Yue Qingyu again to thank him, a cold snort suddenly rang in my ears. "You've got some nerve showing up here. Look how old you are already. So what if you join the sect? At your age, how many years can you even cultivate here? Why force yourself to cultivate at all? You'd be better off living out your days in the mortal world." I looked up at the sound of the voice and saw someone in a cyan satin robe with cloud patterns, a middle-aged female cultivator with her hair in a high bun. She was staring straight at me. Her gaze felt like tiny daggers on my skin. After hearing those remarks, I immediately figured out who she was. The woman in front of me was the little girl who used to wear a top knot and tag along right by my side all the time. Her childhood nickname was Xiaoqiu. But I didn't call her that, of course. Instead, I bowed respectfully with my hands raised and asked, "Greetings, senior." "May I ask for your name, senior?" "Ning Shaiki." Xiaoqiu spat out those 3 words coldly. I bowed again upon hearing that, "Shuran greets Senior Ning." "To answer your question, senior, I fell off a cliff many years ago and ate a strange fruit by mistake, which extended my lifespan greatly. If that hadn't happened, I would never have the audacity to ask Fairy Yue to recommend me for the sect at my age." When Ning Saiki heard how I addressed her, her expression softened a lot. She snorted softly as she looked at me. "You sure are lucky." Then she changed the subject. "But so what? With your aptitude and comprehension level, even if you live another 100 years or so, you still have 0 chance of reaching Foundation establishment. You'll end up wasting your whole life and turn into a pile of dirt in the end anyway. You'd be way happier living freely in the mortal world." My expression stayed calm when I heard that. "What you said might be true, Senior Ning. But no matter what, there's nothing wrong with seeking the Tao, right?" When Ning Saike heard that, her face tensed up in frustration and was just about to say more, when Li Qingyu, who was standing nearby, waved to cut her off. "That's enough, junior sister. Just like fellow Taoist Shu said, there's nothing wrong with seeking the Tao." After Yue Qingyu said that, he nodded at me as a signal. "Wait here for a moment. I'll report your situation to the sect right now." With that, he took out a messaging jade talisman. A little while later, Yue Qingyu put away the messaging jade talisman and looked over at me. He nodded slightly and said, "All right, starting from now, you are an outer disciple of our Xuanqing sect. Considering your age, it's not suitable for you to take on dangerous missions. I've taken the liberty of assigning you to Lingxi Peak. Lingxi Peak mainly focuses on pill refining and growing spiritual herbs. You almost never get combat missions there. Of course, if you don't want that, I can arrange another post for you." I quickly bowed to thank him upon hearing that Fairy's arrangement is perfect for me. "Thank you for your thoughtful arrangement, Fairy." Qingyu nodded, gave me a word of encouragement, then turned to tell Ning Kaike, who was standing nearby, to take me to Lingxi Peak to check in, then left slowly. "Come with me." Since the decision was already made, Ning Kaike didn't say anything more. She gestured at me with her hand, then turned and walked in a certain direction. I followed behind her silently. I didn't mind Ning Kaike's attitude at all. People change, after all. They all grow up eventually. If we hadn't seen each other for 100 years, and she still acted the same as she did back then, I'd be way more freaked out, honestly. I took advantage of her naivety when she was young to get in touch with Li Qingyu back then. Her attitude right now is actually pretty nice, all things considered. It seemed like Lin Shifeng had already gotten the news a long time ago. With Ning Kaike leading the way, I successfully got my identity jade talisman at the Internal Affairs Hall and collected 2 sets of clothes and a jade slip. After we left the Internal Affairs Hall, Ning Kaike took out 2 jade bottles and stuffed them into my hand without explanation. "Take them." I stared at the jade bottles in my hand, then looked at Ning Kaike with a confused expression. "What's this, Senior Ning?" "Tea gathering pills." Ning Saike spat out those 3 words expressionlessly. Just when I was about to refuse, Ning Saike said coldly with a straight face, "Senior Sister Yue is very kind. She treats every disciple really well. That's why a lot of people don't know where to draw the line, and always try to get close to her on purpose and disturb her cultivation. I hope you're not one of those people who overstep boundaries. You can rest assured, Senior Ning." Fairy Yue didn't even mind my mediocre talent and recommended me to join the sect. That's already a huge favor for me. How would I ever dare to bother her cultivation? After hearing my reply, Ning Kaike's expression softened a lot and gave a soft hum in response. "It's best that you think this way. Don't forget what you just promised. If you run into any trouble in the sect, you can come to me for help. Just don't disturb Senior Sister Yue." With that, she didn't even wait for my response, turned around and left. Daily tasks on Lingxi Peak include tending to the spiritual herbs grown in the spiritual fields like weeding, pest control, watering, and fertilizing. All of these are manual labor. Maybe it's because Yue Qingyu specifically gave instructions in advance. After I joined Lingxi Peak, it didn't cause any stir at all. No one mocked me for my age or picked on me on purpose. That helped me get over my anxiety really quickly and fit right into life at Lingxi Peak. Around this time, I also learned Some information about Yue Qingyu. He's the direct disciple of the Zhuan King sect master, and the top talent of the current younger generation. He formed his golden core at 100, and the sect sees him as a future divine transformation cultivator. No wonder he could easily arrange for someone like me, who's over 100 years old, to join the sect. But I wasn't all that surprised by Yue Qingyu's status. After I learned all this about him, I only silently sent my blessings to this guide of mine in my heart, before going back to my daily cultivation. After joining Lingxi Peak, I deeply felt the benefits of being part of a sect. The spiritual energy on Lingxi Peak is way higher than what I had back in the mortal world. On top of that, a preaching elder gives lectures every month here. That's so much better than when I was figuring out cultivation techniques all by myself. Most of the problems I ran into when I cultivated alone got solved easily after attending a few lectures. At Lingxi Peak, I got to experience what rapid progress feels like. In just 10 years, my cultivation went from the 4th level of qi refining to the 6th level. But there's a bottleneck between the 6th and 7th level of qi refining, just like the one at the 4th level. It relies more on your understanding of the Tao. With the experience I had before, I wasn't in a hurry this time. I just focused on cultivating at ease. I was confident I could make the breakthrough. But just when I was following my own pace and cultivating as usual, Ning Saike suddenly came to find me one day. Ning Saike looked at me and spoke calmly. "You still owe me a favor? Do you remember that?" Her straightforward question caught me off guard for a second. Then I nodded and replied, "I've always kept that in mind, Senior. How can I be of service to you?" Seeing that I acknowledged it, Ning Saike's expression softened a little, and she continued, "Good, I need you to do me a favor right now." Then she explained the situation to me. She's currently competing with a fellow disciple for the deacon position. Right now, far fewer people in the sect support her compared to her rival. If nothing changes, she's going to lose. To turn this situation around, the only way she can think of is to get Ye Qingyu, the sect master's direct disciple, to speak for her. She hopes I can go with her. To persuade Yue Qingyu to support her, after hearing what she said, I instinctively wanted to refuse. It's not that I wanted to shirk the favor. I could repay her favor in all sorts of other ways, not in a way like this, that requires bothering other people. I think you're overestimating me, Senior Ning. You know how close I am to Fairy Yue. How could I possibly help with this? After hearing what I said, Ning Taike replied calmly, "That's exactly why I know. I came to ask you for help. No one in the sect is more suitable than you." Seeing my confused and surprised look, she took the initiative to explain, "Senior Sister Yue values old friendships, but she's very detached by nature. Very few people in the sect are close to her. You've only met her twice, but you're able to cultivate because she gave you the cultivation technique, and you joined the sect because of her recommendation. Strictly speaking, she's actually your teacher and guide on your cultivation path. With this kind of connection, she definitely won't refuse your request." After hearing this, I was slightly stunned. Think about it carefully. It really seems to be exactly what she said, but that makes me even more unable to agree. I already owe Yue Qingyu such a huge favor. How can we have the nerve to trouble her again? But before I could open my mouth to refuse, Ning Taike spoke up first. "Don't even think about saying no. You used my connections to get close to Senior Sister Yue back then, and that's how you started on the path of cultivation. Now I'm just using the same method, to make you pay back the favor you owed me from back then. Tit for tat, since you took advantage of me back then, you should have expected this day would come. So you can't say no to this." After saying that, she flicked her sleeve lightly and went on, "You don't have to stress about what to say. You just need to come with me, that's all. You don't have to say a single word. I'll do all the talking." I looked at her in some surprise after hearing that. "Will that work?" The corner of Ning Kaike's mouth lifted slightly, and she spoke in a rather complicated tone. "Of course it will. Senior Sister Yue may be naturally aloof, but she's just like you were back in Shu Village. She knows everything. She understands everything. You think she doesn't get it? She just doesn't want to bother with those kinds of things, that's all." She glanced at me as she said that, and continued, "As long as you come along, Senior Sister will immediately understand what I mean, and she'll know you were forced to come by me to repay a favor. It won't actually cause you too much trouble, if that's the case. Why do you insist I go with you? From what you're saying, it seems even if I don't show up, Senior Sister Yue will still agree to your request, right? I asked, somewhat confused. Hearing that, Ninkaiki was silent for a moment. That's correct. But I have my own reasons. You don't need to worry about that. After saying that, she waved at me, signaling me to follow, then turned around and walked in a certain direction. Seeing that, I was silent for a moment, then quietly lifted my feet and followed. Favors are hard to repay. Just like she said, tit for tat, I can't refuse this matter. After we met Yue Qingyu, just like Ning Taike said she would, she didn't make me speak, and took the initiative to speak herself. Senior Sister, I want to become the deacon of the Foreign Affairs Academy. Yue Qingyu's calm gaze swept over the two of us, then landed on me. She sighed softly. Little junior sister, you really didn't need to bring him here. If you really want to be the deacon of the Foreign Affairs Academy, you can just come to me directly. I wouldn't have refused you. Hearing that, Ninkaiki nodded with a complicated expression on her face. I know, but you've already helped me so much, senior sister. If I didn't bring him here, even if I knew you wouldn't refuse me, I still wouldn't have had the courage to ask. Hearing that, my expression grew complicated. I finally understood why Ninkaike insisted I come along. To put it simply, she just couldn't get past her own mental block. Yue Qingyu looked at Ninkaike and was silent for a moment. No emotion showed on her face at all. She just nodded slightly. I'll talk to the sect about your request. Hearing that, Ninkaike knelt down on the ground and kowtowed heavily. Thank you so much, senior sister. Seeing this, Yue Qingyu signaled her to stand up. Between you and me, there's no need for such formalities. But Ninkaike stayed kneeling on the ground, bowed her head deeply and replied, It is necessary. Only then did she slowly stand up, but she still kept her head bowed deeply, not daring to look up at Yue Qingyu's expression. Seeing this, Yue Qingyu fell silent again. After a long while, she waved her hand, then looked at me who was standing to the side. Congratulations on your progress in cultivation. How have you felt in the sect these past 10 years? Have you run into any problems? Hearing that, I hurriedly replied respectfully. Thank you for your concern, Immortal. I am just... Before I could finish speaking, I was cut off by Yue Qingyu waving her hand. Now that you've joined the sect, just like little care, call me senior sister. I gave a Taoist salute to Yue Qingyu. Thank you for your concern, senior sister Yue. The sect is very good. The elders give us careful guidance. My fellow disciples care about me, and the daily tasks aren't too heavy. Your cultivation is going really smoothly. Your cultivation base has improved a lot. Hearing that, Yue Qingyu nodded gently. That's good to hear. Keep up the good work with your cultivation. Though you're a bit older than other disciples, you ate that life-extending fruit, right? Your lifespan is still more than enough. As long as you work hard, you still have a shot at reaching foundation establishment, and even going further beyond that. I nodded. I'll definitely keep your encouragement in mind, senior sister. Yue Qingyu gave a small nod, then looked over at Ninkaike, who was standing nearby. After a short pause, she slowly turned around, waved her hand, and said, Off you go. Before walking into the inner room, Ninkaike faced the direction. She left and bowed deeply again, then turned around and gestured for me to follow, and headed out of the cave dwelling. After we left Yue Qingyu's cave dwelling, Ninkaike spoke softly with his back to me. It was awkward to watch, right? I was a little confused at that, before I could even respond. Ninkaike, who was standing in front of me, turned around and snorted at me. You're not any better than me. We're even now, got it? With that, he summoned his flying sword with a wave of his hand. His figure turned into a streak of sword light and vanished into the sky. I stared in the direction Ninkaike had left and shook my head slightly. He thought he owed Yue Qingyu way too much, but the debt he felt he owed is something countless people would kill to get. But that's just how it is sometimes. People can never get past their own mental blocks. As for me, I can't really tell if I've paid back his favor now, but I didn't dwell on it too much. I just went straight back to my daily cultivation. The biggest event in Xuanqing sect lately has been the sect grand tournament. It's held every 10 years with amazing rewards. All the disciples are super hyped for it. I joined in too, and got eliminated in the first round, obviously. I wasn't upset at all about how it turned out. Even though I've been cultivating for ages, I've never fought anyone before. I only learned how to use spells recently, too. I only entered to test what I've learned. And just like I expected, I was terrible. The tournament lasted a whole month. I watched the matches the entire time and learned so much. Watching fellow disciples fight finally showed me what real cultivator battles are like, especially the matches between the core disciples, clashes between all those geniuses. Totally blew my mind. Then I thought about how I looked when I was practicing spells, and I couldn't help feeling embarrassed. Turns out when Yue Qingyu said I lack spiritual talent and have poor comprehension, she wasn't just talking about my cultivation. My talent for combat and comprehension of it are even worse. That made me resolve to work harder. I decided to practice spells diligently and use what I learned from watching the tournament to sharpen my combat skills. If talent and comprehension aren't my strong suit, I'll just make up for it with practice. When the Sect Grand Tournament ended, the most anticipated core disciple match was won by Ye Shan, the personal disciple of the Supreme Elder. I thought I would never cross paths with a genius like Ye Shan. After all, we're from totally different worlds. But the very next day after the tournament ended, we ran into each other. I had just finished deworming the spiritual rice in my spiritual farm and was thinking about yesterday's tournament. I was just about to start training hard to improve my sword skills, but I had barely been practicing for a while when a snicker came from behind me. Ha ha ha, you call that sword play? Hearing that voice, I put away my flying sword and quietly turned around and saw Ye Shan trying hard not to laugh. When I saw it was Ye Shan, I was totally confused. What was he doing here? While I was still confused, Ye Shan was looking me up and down, equally confused. After a moment, Ye Shan asked curiously, "Sorry, I don't recognize you. Are you the new deacon here at Lingxi Peak Senior? What should I call you?" I quickly bowed and said, "Outer Sect Disciple Shu. Ran from Lingxi Peak, greets senior brother Ye." Ye Shan was taken aback for a second. Then he smacked his forehead and said in realization, "Oh, you're that old guy senior sister Yue introduced, right? The rather old disciple, huh? I know who you are." With that, he glanced at the sword in my hand and spoke again. "No offense, junior brother Shu. You don't have the talent for swordplay. I'd suggest you stop practicing it. You can try something else." My face froze for a second. I know that myself, and I admit it. My talent and comprehension are really poor. But having someone say that to my face out of the blue still stung pretty bad. To answer you, senior brother Ye, I don't have talent for any other weapons or spells either. Swordplay is actually what I'm best at. After hearing what I said, Ye Shan was super shocked. He stared at me for a few seconds, then spoke slowly. "Junior brother Shu, I might have been too blunt just now. If that upset you, I apologize to you right now. There's no need to joke with me like that." I saw Ye Shan's reaction and didn't bother explaining. Instead, I turned around slowly. Then right in front of him, I demonstrated every single spell I know, starting with Fireball, then Cloud and Rain spell, Spirit Shield, Wood Escape, Quicksand spell, Vine Bind, Great Healing spell, and finally the 5 Elements Escape. I cast every single one of them. After I finished the demonstration, I turned back around. I looked at Ye Shan calmly and said, "Senior brother Ye, what do you think?" Ye Shan stared at me, dumbfounded. He looked completely disbelieving. Then I added another line. "For the record, I'm not holding back. This is definitely my real ability.
I can swear on it."
After hearing me say that, Yezin hesitated for a moment, then spoke slowly. "Junior brother, these are just basic 5 elements Taoist spells. Maybe your talent just lies elsewhere. Why don't you try something else?" Hearing that, I spoke with a dejected look on my face. "Senior brother, what if... The reason I picked these spells is that these are the only spells I'm actually capable of learning. That's impossible. How could there be anyone in this world who has 0 talent for any spells or any weapon skills? There's no way that's true. You definitely just haven't tried enough, junior brother." The corner of my mouth twitched slightly. That sounded just like people in my past life saying, "Even the dumbest person can learn calculus if they try." Geniuses really do say the most annoying stuff. I hate geniuses. I took a deep breath, then replied calmly, "But that's just how it is. I've tried basically everything I can try." Ye Shan's face froze. He's been a genius since he was a kid. All the people he usually hangs out with are geniuses, too. Running into someone as mediocre as me out of nowhere made him feel awkward for a second. He didn't know how to respond. After a long while, he finally offered his suggestion quietly. "Why don't you stop practicing all this stuff, junior brother? Just focus on raising your cultivation level. That's not gonna work. I puffed out my chest and said righteously, as a disciple of the sect, it's my duty to protect the sect. The cultivation world isn't peaceful right now. Even though I'm already old, if one day the sect needs me, I'm still willing to lay down my life for the secti. And give this old, worn-out body of mine, I'm ready at all times. Yashan's expression turned serious. I gotta say, the slogan I shouted was really contagious. It even got him a little fired up. Then he waved his hand. Junior brother, your determination is really admirable, but there's no need for that. The kind of thing you're talking about won't happen, even if that day ever comes. We won't need you to go to the battlefield. Why? Because I'm too mediocre. No, strictly speaking, you're not actually a disciple of our mystic green sect. Why would the sect send you to the battlefield? I looked completely shocked. I'm not a disciple of mystic green sect. I held back my emotions, cupped my fists at Yeshan in greeting. Senior brother, yeah, why would you say that? I've been on Spirit Stream Peak for 10 years. How could I not be a sect disciple? Is it because you think I'm too mediocre? So you're gonna have the sect kick me out? Faced with my question, Yeshan waved his hands hurriedly to explain, No, junior brother, you've got the wrong idea. Yeshan looked at me, hesitated for a second, then explained, the sect has rules for what qualifies someone as a disciple. Junior brother Shu, when you joined the sect, is way below the sect's requirements. If senior sister Yue was a regular core disciple or elder, then arranging for someone to join the sect wouldn't be a big deal. But she's the sect leader's direct disciple, the current top disciple of the whole sect. Basically, everyone already sees her as the next sect leader in line, on top of her status and position, plus senior sister Yue has always been someone with her own pride. Of course, she can't be the first to break sect rules, so even though she arranged for you to join the sect, junior brother Shu, the only thing you got is the identity of an outer sect disciple. All other benefits you're entitled to are deducted from senior sister Yue's own contribution points. Do you get it now? The sect isn't the one supporting you. Senior sister Yue is the one covering all your costs. If you really want to risk your life and dedicate yourself and give your worn-out body to a cause, it should be for senior sister Yue, not the sect. After listening to Yeshan's explanation, my face was full of mixed emotions. So that's how it is. No wonder I felt that my life in the sect was a little too peaceful. There was no competition at all. I originally thought it was because I was too old, and my talent was too mediocre, so no one saw me as a rival. Turns out it's because I'm not even an official disciple yet. That's really too awkward to put into words. Yeshan looked at me standing there stunned. He probably guessed how I felt, and hurriedly tried to comfort me. Of course, that's how it is right now. But if you can reach the foundation establishment stage, junior brother, you'll become an official disciple, and we won't need to deduct from senior sister Yue's contribution points anymore. So junior brother, instead of splitting your focus to learn spells and sword techniques, you're better off focusing on raising your cultivation base. Even though you're older now, junior brother, you went to explore the secret realm with senior sister Yue when you were little, and accidentally ate a life-extending exotic fruit. Your lifespan is still more than enough. You have plenty of time to break through to the foundation establishment stage. Right after he finished saying that, he suddenly remembered something. He paused slightly when he thought of me being at level 4 of chi refining after 100 years. After a moment, he waved his hand and comforted me again. Of course, it's okay even if you can't make it. The small amount of contribution points you use anyway is nothing to senior sister Yue. You don't need to worry about it too much. I let out a confused gasp when I heard that. What did Yeshan just say? When I explored the secret realm with Yue Qingyu, the life-extending fruit I accidentally ate. So that's what Yue Qingyu reported to the secti. I immediately understood what she was thinking. Actually, when I made up the story about eating the life-extending fruit by mistake, I knew this excuse would cause a small problem. That some people would come to ask me about the location of the life-extending fruit and other related info. After all, even though the fruit was eaten, the fruit tree must still be there. Maybe there are other rare treasures hidden in that secret realm, who knows? There will definitely be people who want to go check it out. No one came to ask me about it before. I thought it was because everyone was afraid of Yue Qingyu's status. Now, after hearing what Yeshan said, I finally realized that Yue Qingyu had already taken care of this potential trouble for me long ago. I suddenly kind of understood how Ninkaike felt. I feel like I owe Yue Qingyu more and more now. After staying silent for a while, I raised my hands and bowed to Yeshan, Thank you for telling me all this, senior brother Ye. When Yeshan heard that, his face suddenly froze, and he looked annoyed. After a little while, he waved his hand at me in a panic. Just work hard, junior brother Shu. I'm gonna go get my reward first. With that, he turned around and left quickly. Looking at Yeshan's leaving back, after I stayed silent for a moment, I picked up my sword and kept practicing. I'm not a sentimental person. Now that I know about Yue Qingyu's arrangements, even though I feel a little heavy-hearted, and like I owe her a lot, but since things are already like this, and I can't pay her back right now, I might as well accept her kindness peacefully and cultivate according to my original plan. I believe I will definitely have the ability to repay Yue Qingyu for everything in the future. I had only been practicing for a little while when Yeshan, who just left, suddenly came back. After he showed up, he shouted at me, "Catch, junior brother Shu." Then he threw an object over to me. I reached out to catch it without thinking, only to find that it was a jade bottle. I looked at it confused and asked, "What's this, senior brother Ye?" Yeshan smiled slightly. "It's the reward from the grand competition." My face showed shock when I heard that. The grand competition reward, the sect grand competition. The reward for the top direct disciple is a 4th grade elixir. But before I could even reply, Yeshan over there flicked his sleeve, smirked and said, "I thought the reward would be something good. Turns out it's just a healing elixir." Then he cupped his fists at me in salute. Junior brother Shu, I thought about it. I realized what I said earlier was a bit rude and hurtful. Also, the thing I told you before, about senior sister Yue, just keep it to yourself. Don't tell anyone I said it. That bottle of healing elixir is for your apology and hush money. This is way too valuable. I can't take it. I quickly refused. A 4th grade elixir, I couldn't afford that even if I sold myself. Yeshan just waved his hand. What's so valuable about it? Healing elixirs are useless to me anyway. Just take it, no worries. Yeshan puffed out his chest proudly and said casually, I, Yeshan, have been cultivating for all these years. I never carry healing elixirs with me, and I've never taken a single one either. Only mediocre people are afraid of getting hurt. I fear nothing. No matter what problem or enemy I face, I'll cut it down with my sword. With that, he turned to leave before I could respond, and walked away slowly. He waved at me over his shoulder as he walked. Junior brother Shu, I never take back. What I've given to others, I've given it to you anyway. What you do with it is your business. If you don't want it, just throw it away. It was noon right then. When the sun was at its brightest, I looked at Yeshan's back, and he looked just like that blazing sun. So bright it was almost blinding. I couldn't help but feel a twinge of envy in my heart. This was a rising sun, at the peak of his youth and ambition. I bet before long, his name will be known all over the world. Then I looked away, and silently went back to practicing my terrible sword skills. Guys like Yue Qingyu, Yeshan, and I are not on the same cultivation path. Yue Qingyu and Yeshan's path belongs to the current era, while mine lies in the far future. I believe if I keep going at my own steady pace, sooner or later I will shine brightly. In some future era, this was a rising sun, at the peak of his youth and ambition. I bet before long, his name will be known all over the world. Then Shiran looked away, and silently went back to practicing his terrible sword skills. Guys like Yue Qingyu, Yeshan, and he are not on the same cultivation path. Yue Qingyu and Yeshan's path belongs to the current era, while his lies in the far future. He believes if he keeps going at his own steady pace, sooner or later he will glow with a radiance, as brilliant as what Yue Qingyu and Yeshan have now. And unlike Yue Qingyu and Yeshan, after their time of glory, they will inevitably grow old and fade, just like the noon sun will eventually become the setting sun, until it finally turns into night. But once he rises, he will never set, he will shine forever. From the moment he rises, all future eras will belong to him, until the end of time. As for the elixir Yeshan gave him, Shiran thought for a moment, and thought that as a chi refining stage disciple, owning a 4th grade elixir might bring him trouble, mostly because Yeshan doesn't seem like someone who can keep a secret. He'll probably go blab about it right after, that he gave the elixir to him casually. If that happens, Yezhan might not care. But what about everyone else? I'm not even an official disciple. If I just take it like that, would that be really stupid? So Shiran went to find Yue Qingyu and told him about the elixir. Yue Qingyu was dressed in white, sitting upright on a stone bench in the pavilion, tilting his head to look at the lotus flowers in the lake. A gentle breeze blew past, lifting his long hair softly, covering half of his face. When Xiran showed up, Yue Qingyu was pretty surprised. After all, since he joined the sect, this is the first time he's sought him out on his own. After listening to Xiran's story, Yue Qingyu nodded slightly and said softly, "Since he gave it to you, just take it. Wouldn't that be inappropriate?" Yue Qingyu lifted his fair, delicate, slender hand, waved lightly, and said, "No, it won't. Junior brother Zishan isn't exactly doing this kind of thing for the first time." Xiran, you got it a bit wrong. Charge forward without hesitation. Once the sword is drawn, there's no turning back. There's no path behind you. This is Junior brother Zishan's path. Do you understand? Hearing this, Xiran looked instantly serious. Couldn't help admiring Zishan's imposing aura. Nodded and replied, "I understand." Yue Qingyu nodded gently, then added another point. "You don't have to worry about others objecting. What junior brother Zishan has given, no one dares to covet it." Hearing these words, Xiran immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Good. Now he could rest easy. Now that the matter was settled, Xiran was about to raise his hand to say goodbye to Yue Qingyu. But just then, Yue Qingyu turned her head gently, looked at him and asked calmly, "Other than the matter of the pills, what else did junior brother Zishan say?" Xiran was slightly stunned when he heard that. After hesitating for a moment, he nodded and replied, "He also told me about your arrangement for me to join the sect, senior sister. He didn't hide anything. He directly repeated everything Iazem had told him." Yue Qingyu nodded gently, then looked at him and asked, "What do you think about this?" Xiran replied calmly, "I can only do my best to cultivate, so I don't let down your kindness, senior sister." Hearing this, Yue Qingyu had a flicker of surprise in her eyes, then smiled softly and said, "Then, I'll wait patiently for you, junior brother, to succeed in your foundation establishment and attain the great Tao." Xiran raised his hand in a salute. "Thank you for your kind words, senior sister. I will definitely do my best to cultivate." Yue Qingyu nodded with a smile and waved at him as a gesture. Seeing this, Xiran said goodbye and turned to leave. After leaving Yue Qingyu's cave residence, Xiran let out a long sigh of relief. Although he had looked completely calm just now, there was a fire in his chest. It wasn't anger. It was the desire to make Yue Qingyu proud. Chesem had said before, the sect wouldn't assign him any combat missions. Even if the sect was on the verge of being invaded and destroyed, he would be the last one to be sent to fight. This meant that in the sect's positioning of him, he was just here to retire thanks to his connection with Yue Qingyu. He wasn't upset about this at all. Strictly speaking, that was exactly the case for him. He didn't care about his own reputation, but he hated that he would drag Yue Qingyu's name through the mud. Others would think she had bad judgment for recommending an old man to join the sect just to retire. Since he had accepted Yue Qingyu's kindness, he felt he had to at least make her proud. First, he'd set a small goal, become an official disciple through his own efforts. At the very least, he had to let the sect know that he wasn't a completely useless person. Foundation establishment was still way too far for him right now. He couldn't even see a path to the 7th level of chi refining yet. Although breaking through to Foundation establishment would make him an official disciple, everyone thought he had taken the longevity fruit. So his lifespan was already longer than others. With a much longer lifespan than average, breaking through to Foundation establishment was only to be expected. That wouldn't be enough to make Yue Qingyu proud. If anything, if he failed to break through, he would just make her a laughingstock. So he had to find another way to get the sect to recognize his ability. As for how exactly to do that, he had no clue right now, but he felt he should start with Lingxi Peaks, vast spiritual fields and herb gardens. Before, apart from his daily tasks and cultivation, Xiran basically didn't care about anything else. But starting from that day, apart from tasks and cultivation, he would wander around the spiritual fields and herb gardens in his free time and observe carefully. He also studied basic knowledge of spiritual plants and herbs, much more seriously than before, until one day, when the spiritual rice in the fields was almost ripe, he looked at the insects eating the rice ears and suddenly had an idea. pop into his head. Locust plagues also exist in the cultivation world, except the locusts here are called lynxy bugs, which are classified as demon beasts. Normally, the sect's spiritual fields and herb gardens have many disciples assigned to get rid of pests. Under normal circumstances, they can basically be cleaned up completely, so the crops in the fields and gardens won't take much damage, and the losses stay within a controllable range. But once a locust plague breaks out, the impact will still be huge. Places like spiritual fields and elixir gardens are not suitable for setting up large-scale defensive arrays. After all, the larger an array's scope is, the greater its impact on Earth Vein Key. Usually we can only fight pest disasters manually. Besides, most pest disasters start inside the spiritual fields. Even if you set up arrays, it won't make much difference. As far as Shuran remembers, the spiritual fields on Lingxi Peak have pest disasters quite often. They even happen a little too frequently. He has joined many large-scale pest elimination missions before. Every time a pest disaster hits, the spiritual rice harvest in the fields drops sharply. Pest disasters this frequent are kind of abnormal. Shuran didn't care about this before, and didn't think too much of it. Now that he's paying attention, he thinks he can start with this issue. Insect-killing pesticides are impossible for him to produce, but he has some pest prevention and control experience from his past life, and he thinks he can sum that up properly. There's no rule that says contributions to the sect must be tangible products. A practical set of methods and theories works too. After figuring out his direction, Shuran felt very determined. Every day outside of his cultivation, he focused on studying Lingxi bugs, although he has past life pest control knowledge for reference. The two worlds are different after all. Spiritual bugs are also very different from regular bugs. Adapting his past life knowledge to fit this world can't be done overnight. It takes a lot of time to observe and research. Only when you know enough about spiritual bugs can you come up with control solutions. Shuran isn't in a hurry about this. He's working towards his goal at a steady pace, but just as he was looking forward to presenting his finished pest control plan, that day didn't come first. He had an embarrassing life blunder first. The second year after the sect competition ended, Shuan King's sect started a new round of recruitment. For this recruitment, Lingxi Peak got over 300 new disciples. About this matter, Shuran was quite happy. Before this, he joined the sect halfway through, so his entry time was much later than others. Before the new disciples joined, he was the lowest ranked person in the entire sect. He had to call everyone senior brother or senior sister. Now that new disciples have joined, he couldn't help but sigh in relief. He can finally be called senior brother by others, and call other people junior brother or junior sister. That's a huge step up for him. One day he went to the skill transmission hall for class as usual, with the new disciples around. The atmosphere here was livelier than usual. Normally, new disciples are the most well-behaved. After all, they're in a strange new environment, not familiar with anything, so they don't dare to act out. But today was different. During the spell class, the elder on stage had only been speaking for a little while, when a snort came from below. Elder, all the stuff you're teaching is too basic. Can't you teach something more advanced? This person sounded pretty young, and his tone was extremely arrogant. You could tell he was a little brat right away. Sure enough, everyone looked towards the source of the sound, and saw a stocky young boy with his arms crossed, nose pointing up at the sky, looking at the teaching elder on stage with disdain. This sudden scene made the whole place go dead silent immediately. Many people didn't even dare to breathe loudly, wondering what would happen next. The elder teaching today was called Master Qingshuan. He was upright and impartial. He had many times defended ordinary disciples who had little to no connection with him, even arguing until red in the face, with peak masters and other high-level sect officials. And unlike other skill transmission hall elders, who basically just clock in and go through the motions, when he teaches disciples, he's very serious and patient. Master Qingshuan is also the only person who has ever actively asked Shu Ran if he understood the lesson, and if there was anything he didn't get, that he could ask freely since joining the sect. Every time Shu Ran comes to the skill transmission hall, the thing he looks forward to most is Master Qingshuan's lessons. This troublemaking brat daring to act so arrogant must have an impressive background. But he ran into Master Qingshuan, a man who sticks firmly to his principles. He won't be able to act this way for long. Things went exactly as Xu Ran expected. Master Qingshuan stared coldly at the troublemaking brat and said, "Your name is Zhang Gentian, right? I know who you are, grandson of the great elder of Tianhai Peak. But that doesn't mean you can cause trouble in my class. Other than the Elder Council and the Enforcement Hall, the Merit Transmission Hall also has the right to directly punish disciples, without reporting to higher authorities first. Since this is your first offense, I'll let you off the hook this time. If you make the same mistake again, you can test me to see if I dare to expel you from the sect." That brat Zhang Gentian was slightly stunned by Master Qingshuan's imposing aura, but he wasn't really too scared. He raised both his hands and formed a Taoist seal towards Master Qingshuan and said very respectfully, "Reporting to Elder, I didn't mean to make trouble. I'm just saying, what you're teaching is way too basic. For someone of your status to teach this stuff is really quite disappointing. Even if you want to punish me, you should at least make me fully convinced, right? Oh? What do you want then?" When Zhang Gentian saw Master Qingshuan respond, his face lit up with joy right away, and he hurried to speak. "I want to challenge the senior brothers here to prove what I said is true. I really don't need to listen to this content. I hope you will approve my request, Elder." After that, he quickly added, "Of course. I haven't been cultivating for long, so my cultivation level is very low. I hope I can compete with the senior brother at the same cultivation level, or it's okay if he is one level higher than me." Actually, Master Qingshuan could have refused directly, but this brat was way too arrogant. Seeing such a rebellious disciple, he wanted to teach him a lesson himself, to let him learn proper manners. So he agreed without any hesitation. "You can pick anyone you want. If you lose, you have to go tell your grandfather yourself that from now on, I will be in charge of all your training, and you have to follow me willingly and never disobey my orders." "No problem," Zhang Gentian agreed boldly with a proud look. At this moment, Xu Ran, who was watching the fun nearby, was still sighing to himself in his heart. This brat might be a troublemaker, but he's not completely brainless. He does things in an organized way and plans everything before acting. When he grows up later, he might become a really impressive person. But right at this moment, after looking around for a while, Zhang Gentian suddenly pointed at him and said, "Could this senior brother please compete with me? He looks like the oldest person here. I bet he has the most experience too. If I can beat him, it will also make you fully convinced, Elder." He didn't know who Xu Ran was. He just simply thought the oldest person should also be the strongest one here. After hearing these words, Master Qingshuan's face froze for a second. All the other people present who knew Xu Ran also had weird expressions on their faces. Xu Ran, who was being pointed at by Zhang Gentian, was completely confused. Before he could even refuse, Master Qingshuan looked at him and said, "Xu Ran, since he has called you out, then you can have a competition with him." After saying that, when he was sealing Xu Ran's cultivation, he involuntarily chose to keep his cultivation level at level 3 of Qi refining, one level higher than Zhang Gentian's. If it were anyone else, he would never do this. But since the person is Xu Ran, Master Qingshuan sighed softly in his heart. Forget it, let fate decide. Zhang Gentian also noticed right then that Xu Ran's cultivation level was one level higher than his, but he didn't care about that at all. After all, he was the one who said that this was acceptable. After both sides saluted each other, Zhang Gentian shouted loudly and attacked directly. The moment he saw Zhang Gentian attack, Master Qingshuan's heart skipped a beat immediately. He slowly closed his eyes. With his level of insight, he could tell at a glance how extraordinary the kid was, as expected of the most valued junior of the great elder of Tianhai Peak. He really has the talent of a top cultivator. Let alone Xu Ran. Even if you replace him with most people present at the same cultivation level, they might not be able to defeat Zhang Gentian. Just as he had expected, Xu Ran was defeated in no time. Xu Ran also felt extremely ashamed about this. He actually lost to a brat who was only 12 or 13 years old, but there was nothing he could do about it. He really wasn't good at fighting. Zhang Gentian looked very proud after winning the competition. Master Qingshuan looked at him. After being silent for a moment, he slowly spoke. "From now on, when you're in my class, as long as you don't disturb others. You can do whatever you want." With that, he waved his hand, signaling that today's sermon was over, but he asked Shuran to stay behind alone. After everyone else had left, Master Qingshuan stared at the ashamed and flustered Shuran. After a long silence, he spoke slowly. "Shuran, have you ever faced a life-or-death crisis in your life?" Shuran originally thought Master Qingshuan had asked him to stay just to scold and punish him. Now caught off guard by this sudden question, he was stunned for a second, then shook his head and answered, "Elder, to answer your question, I've been cultivating in the mortal world this whole time. I've never met any other cultivators before, let alone fought any." Master Qingshuan nodded slightly at that. "I see. No wonder Shuran's spells and combat talent are so poor. It's not just a matter of aptitude and comprehension. More importantly, he's always lived in a stable and peaceful environment. Someone who's lived in peace for over 100 years and never felt any sense of danger would be weird to have great combat talent." After figuring out the reason, Master Qingshuan immediately came up with a way to unlock Shuran's spell and combat potential. He then stared at Shuran with a cold face and spoke in a chilling tone. "I see. You've never fought anyone before. Losing to Zhang Gentian is understandable, but you made me lose face in front of so many of my disciples. You can escape the death penalty, but I'll cripple your cultivation as punishment." When Shuran heard that, he jolted awake instantly. His eyes wide open, he stared at Master Qingshuan in front of him. He could barely believe that such cruel words came from the mouth of the highly respected and upright Master Qingshuan. Could it be that the persona he showed in front of all the disciples was all a fake? Just as he was thinking that, Master Qingshuan slowly raised his hand. When Shuran met his icy gaze, his hair stood on end instantly, and he turned to run. Faced with Master Qingshuan's sudden change of demeanor, he wasn't going to bet on him being kind. But he'd only taken a few steps when he suddenly saw that Master Qingshuan had already appeared in front of him to block his way. A cold sneer curled on his lips. "How dare you resist?" Hearing that, Shuran hardened his heart, channeled all his spiritual power, and cast Quicksand Spell and Vine Spell at Master Qingshuan, followed by several Fireball spells in a row. He knew this couldn't hurt the other man. He didn't even hope to stop him even for a split second. After hearing what the other man said, he just wanted to show his resolve. "You're gonna cripple my cultivation. Why the hell shouldn't I fight back? Am I supposed to just wait around to die? Even an ant has the right to resist, let alone a human being like me. Good, you've successfully piqued my interest. In that case, before I cripple you, I'll have some fun with you first. Make sure you put up a good fight, otherwise, if you don't amuse me enough, you'll lose your life." Master Qingshuan's teasing voice drifted over slowly. What he did next was exactly as he'd said. He treated Shuran like a toy, controlled the power of his attacks, and messed with him as much as he wanted. Seeing Master Qingshuan's actions, Shuran did wonder for a second if the other man was deliberately training him, but he didn't dare take that chance. What if he really was going to cripple his cultivation? Besides, every single one of his attacks, even though the power was controlled, held no mercy at all. Every strike was aimed at the vital parts of his body, leaving him exhausted just trying to defend himself. He had no time to think about anything else. He could only fight back with all his might. After more than half an hour, Shuran's spiritual power was already completely drained. His veins felt like they were about to burst, facing the incoming attack from Master Qingshuan. Even though he was unwilling, no matter how hard he tried, his body wouldn't move an inch. He could only watch helplessly as the attack flew straight towards him. But right as the attack was about to tear through his body, it suddenly vanished. Then Master Qingshuan stood with his hands behind his back, facing away from him, and said coldly, "Go back and recover properly. Stay behind after every monthly sermon, until I'm satisfied with your performance." Hearing these words, Shuran froze for a split second. Then he braced one hand against the ground and struggled to stand up, and bowed respectfully to Master Qingshuan. "Thank you for your guidance, Elder." Master Qingshuan did not respond to this. He simply lifted his feet and left silently, leaving only a proud, aloof silhouette for Shuran. How could Shuran not understand by now? Master Qingxuan had been intentionally giving him guidance. For a disciple like him with awful talent and comprehension, who even joined the sect through backdoor connections, and had zero cultivation potential. A Golden Core master like him was even willing to lower his status and act like a villain just to teach him pointers. Going to such lengths for him was truly touching. He thought back carefully, and realized that when Master Qingxuan had threatened his life earlier, his use of Taoist techniques was definitely the best he had ever performed in his life. Sure enough, only when facing a life-or-death crisis can a person's full fighting instinct be unlocked. He carefully replayed every feeling from that fight, sorted and summed up all takeaways, and turned them into his own gains. The result of Shuran and Zhang Zhentian's fight naturally spread across the sect very quickly, and the outcome sparked a huge amount of discussion. Everyone was absolutely stunned by Shuran's performance. A person who had cultivated for over 100 years actually lost to a 12 or 13-year-old teen who had only just started cultivating. When it came to Shuran's talent, everyone could only describe it as once in a lifetime. This is basically completely unheard of. No one could figure out why senior sister Yue would arrange for someone like him to join the sect. Isn't that just making her look bad? Then 3 days after the duel with Zhang Zhentian, Ning Saike, who Shuran hadn't seen in a long time, suddenly showed up at Zhuran's place. Looking at Ning Kaike's frosty expression, Shuran immediately felt a chill run down his back. He guessed, she must be here because of all the disciple gossip these days. Is she going to attack me? Just as he had thought. The first thing Ning Keike brought up was him losing to that little brat Zhang Zhentian. You were brought in by senior sister Yue. Whenever you do anything, you can't just think about yourself. You also have to consider senior sister Yue. You might not care about your own reputation, but can you please stop embarrassing senior sister Yue? Faced with Ning Kaike's words, Shuran didn't know how to reply for a moment. What Ning Kaike did next caught Shuran completely off guard. She didn't attack him. Instead, she pulled out 2 jade slips and tossed them to him. Shuran stared at the jade slips in his hand, then looked at her in confusion. Ning Kaike said with a cold face, "These are my cultivation notes, and a technique called myriad wood transformation art. Cultivate well. I don't want to ever hear anyone in the sect talking about senior sister Yue because of you again." Shuran looked at Ning Kaike with mixed emotions. Times have changed. The little sparrow from back then is now senior Ning. But even at her worst, she only ever gave him the cold shoulder. Even though it was obvious she didn't want to see him, she never used her status or connections to play dirty tricks on him, to get him kicked out of the sect. When he first joined the sect, she had also given him 2 bottles of medicinal pills. Now she's giving him her personal cultivation notes, and even gifting him an advanced cultivation technique. Sure enough, that little sparrow from Shu Village back then, no matter how much she's changed, has never lost her kind nature. Or maybe she has never actually changed at all. It's just that as time passed, she had to take on this current persona. Maybe deep in her heart, she is still the same little sparrow from back then. Shuran bowed deeply to Ning Kaike and said thank you. Then he remembered the name of the technique she had just mentioned, and his face immediately filled with shock. Because he knew what myriad wood transformation art was. It is an extremely advanced wood-type divine ability. It is said that when fully cultivated, it can rival some of the sect's top guardian divine abilities. But this divine ability has one special trait. It is extremely easy to learn the basics. Basically, anyone can learn it and use it skillfully. But that's as far as most people get. Trying to make further progress after that is basically impossible. Even some of the most famous once-in-a-generation talents, and even powerful cultivators, can't get very far with this divine ability. Some people even speculate that even the founder of this divine ability never managed to cultivate it to the later stages. That's why even though this art is called a divine ability, it's only regarded as an ordinary wood-type spell. And because of its special traits, barely anyone chooses to practice it. After all, no one wants to waste time on a spell that has no future development potential. Senior Ning, this myriad wood transformation spell. Seeing Shuran's hesitant look, Ning Saike snorted coldly and said, "This spell might be hard to master, and has no room for further advancement. But it's super easy to get started with. Almost everyone can learn it, and use it proficiently. With your natural talent and comprehension, the first thing you need is a spell you can learn and use skillfully right away, not chasing after gains that only pay off far in the future. I think you're smart enough to figure that out, right? Hyozen nodded. I get it. Right now, for me, having some skills I can master proficiently is what matters most. Everything else is unimportant. But can you really teach this spell to me? Relax, I already registered it with the sect. I redeemed this spell specifically for you. Remember what I told you. I don't want senior sister Yue to be targeted by gossip again because of you. With that, Ninkaiki turned and left before he could even respond. Shuran watched her retreating back, his expression complicated. The Myriad Wood transformation spell. Even though its traits have reduced it to the status of a regular spell, it's still a supernatural power after all. No matter what, it costs way more contribution points than ordinary spells. What's more, if you redeem it for someone else, you have to pay 50% extra contribution points. She really went out of her way for me. Shuran let out a long sigh and shook his head. Then he calmed himself down, getting ready to take out her cultivation notes. But right at that moment, a paper crane suddenly flew in through the door. The paper crane flapped its little wings, circled around him once, then landed on his shoulder. A flash of spiritual light glowed on the paper crane, and Yue Qingyu's cool, ethereal voice came through. Ignore all the rumors going around the sect. Focus on your cultivation. That was the only message, but it made Zhuran's chest swell with emotion. He was obviously the one who got Yue Qingyu into all this trouble and gossip. He should be the one apologizing. But instead, right now, Yue Qingyu was the one who came to encourage him first. Yue Qingyu is just way too kind. Her kindness is gonna make me cry. Ninkaiki's cultivation notes are packed with super useful stuff. There are tons of practical little tips in there, like what conditions give you the best cultivation efficiency, or what to do when you hit a bottleneck and can't progress. To get the most out of your practice time, she brought up this issue multiple times in the notes. When she hit a bottleneck herself, she would calm her mind, stop thinking about making a breakthrough, and polish the very first realms over and over again to improve the quality of her spiritual power and physical strength. She also used this chance to fix gaps in her foundation and make it more solid. There were also tips on how to circulate spiritual power, to boost your explosive power, and a lot more. Most of it was her insights from cultivation, all personal summaries from her own lifetime of practice. It covers everything from when she first started cultivating to when she broke through to foundation establishment. She held back none of her insights and laid everything out clearly for Shuran. He learned an absolute ton from her cultivation notes. Shuran could also picture a stubborn, unyielding, tough figure. You can tell just from the little tricks included in the notes. Ning Taike's natural cultivation talent wasn't all that great. Forget comparing to prodigies like Yue Qingyu and Jie Shan. Even compared to regular sect disciples, she was probably a bit worse. She mentioned multiple times hitting bottlenecks and how she felt when she couldn't break through. From her descriptions, Shuran could faintly feel what she was going through back then. She was like a stubborn little sparrow. You won't let me break through? Fine, I'll just keep at it. I'll smash through this bottleneck no matter what, even if I bash my head open trying. She didn't break through to foundation establishment until she was almost 60. She tried 3 whole times and used 3 foundation establishment pills to succeed. Normally, a disciple with her level of talent would be lucky to get even 1 foundation establishment pill, but she used 3. It doesn't take a genius to figure out. Shuran knew immediately that during that time, Yue Qingyu must have helped her. No wonder she's so loyal to Yue Qingyu. If there were no other distractions, Ning Taike and Yue Qingyu would get along just like they did back in Shu Village, waving their little fists around happily, with a super fierce look on his face. Too bad the path of cultivation is inherently unfair. Not everyone is like that Dao Seeker Yue Qingyu. Smashed through every obstacle all the way, reached Golden Core at 100 years old. Most people are just like Ning Saike, stumbling and bumbling along the way, forcing their way forward with great difficulty. These 2 people, one is a world-famous genius, the other is just an ordinary person with average aptitude, unless Ning Kaike doesn't want to keep walking down the path of cultivation He's definitely going to end up the one who owes the other. But who can just give it up after they've started cultivating? At least Shuren knows he could never do that. So things ending up like this between them was destined from the start. Shuren sighed to himself, then put down Ninkaike's cultivation notes and picked up the item she gave him, the magical power art Wanmu Huashengjue. After he finished reading the content of the art, the expression on his face got super weird. Right at this moment, he finally understood why everyone says this art is super easy to start learning. Literally anyone can pick it up. It's the first time in this world that he's ever seen a cultivation art like this. The cultivation method felt oddly familiar to him. No super mysterious patterns or mantras. Everything is straightforward and simple. And super detailed too. It just straight up tells you first do this, then do this, then do this next, and finally do that. Yep, great, congratulations. You've successfully learned this magical art. Every step tells you exactly what you should do. You don't need to think about anything at all. Just follow the instructions above, that's it. This super user-friendly teaching style made Shuren feel like he was back in school in his past life. Then he followed the steps above and learned it on the first try. Watching the instantly appearing thousands of branches and vines dancing all around, he couldn't help but freeze up for a second. Even the fireball spell took him 3 whole days to learn back then, after dozens of attempts before he barely got the hang of it. But this Wamu Huashengjie is a real genuine magical power art. Even if you only master the basics, it's still a high-level spell. It can control, bind, strangle, defend, teleport, and so much more. One single spell has multiple uses and is infinitely ingenious. Such a complicated art, and he learned it in one go. Gave him the proud feeling that he's a total genius. He couldn't help but sigh. Turns out cultivation doesn't have to be all mysterious and vague. It can be this simple too. If realm cultivation could be like this too, he would have ascended ages ago. Ugh, what a shame. As for after you get past the basics, using it at the next stage is exactly like the description said. There's basically no way to cultivate it. The subsequent realms are just a bunch of illogical, unrelated characters that don't even form proper words. Just looking at them makes your head hurt, let alone actually cultivating it. After Shuren glanced at it once, he just gave up directly. Anyway, for him, being able to master a high-level spell that is super handy to use is already more than enough for him. When he fights with other people, he has a bit more confidence now too. The discussions caused by Yuran's fight with Zhang Zhentian didn't last for very long. In just a few days, everyone's attention got pulled away by other things. And the thing that pushed Shuren off the top of the headlines was Jishan, who he'd met once before. It's only been 1 year since the Sect Grand competition ended. Jishan's cultivation strength has improved to the next level now. Yesterday, in full view of the public, he challenged the 3 core disciples and defeated all of them with a single sword strike. This kind of awe-inspiring power immediately caused an uproar across the entire sect. Everyone used to call Jishan the second Yue Qingyu. After this fight, many people think he might even surpass Yue Qingyu as a latecomer and become Xuan King Sect's first divine transformation Tao Lord first. After all, even Yue Qingyu, who reached Golden Core at 100 when he was in the Purple Mansion realm, never had the amazing feat of defeating 3 genius core disciples of the same realm with 1 sword strike. After this fight, the morale of the entire Xuan King sect got a huge boost. All the disciples were walking around with their heads held high. Having 2 peerless geniuses with the potential to reach divine transformation in the same generation made a lot of people imagine what it would be like when these 2 geniuses reached divine transformation. When it came to Zishan's achievements, Shuren was also really jealous deep down. I can't even beat a naughty little kid, but that other guy is so overpowered that all the top genius disciples of his era can't even catch their breath. Man, comparing yourself to others really sucks. But what he never saw coming was that the man who just took down 3 top disciples with 1 sword, the brightest talent across the entire sect, Zishan, the very next day after that big fight, actually showed up at his door looking for him. Seeing Zishan suddenly appear right in front of him, Shuren was completely shocked. He was still wondering why. The other guy had come to visit him this time. Zishan, standing opposite, just stared him up and down for a moment. Then he asked with obvious curiosity, Junior brother Shu, I heard you lost to. A little kid who just started cultivating not long ago. Is that actually true? Xishan's eyes were wide open, looking like he was super invested in the answer. Shuran felt pretty helpless about this. He knew full well the other guy wasn't here to mock him, but acting like he's super interested in your most embarrassing life moment right to your face is just so inappropriate. Don't you think? But then he remembered that last time Xishan had given him a 4th grade elixir. Shuren went silent for a second, then nodded and answered. It's true, I really did lose. Xishan got even more curious right away. He stroked his chin, stared at him, and circled him twice, with a totally fascinated look on his face, like he'd just seen some super rare novelty item. Acting this weird left Shuran totally confused. Senior brother Ye, what are you doing? Xishan waved his hand. Nothing, just looking. Looking at what? Looking at you, duh. What's so interesting about me? Xishan nodded hard and answered firmly, Junior brother. You probably know this already. I was born a genius. Ever since I started cultivating, almost everyone I meet is also a genius. So I'm really curious about people like you. I genuinely want to know how you usually cultivate. Shuran's face froze when he heard that. He thought, Xishan is super talented for sure, but his social skills are straight up terrible. He was like this before too. Even if you know he doesn't mean any harm, it's still so annoying. They're both top geniuses. Look at Yue Qingyu. He's so sweet and thoughtful, and thinks of everything. While he was thinking, Xishan suddenly smacked his forehead and said excitedly, Oh right, junior brother! Can I hang around and cultivate with you these days? He quickly added to explain, I'm actually really curious about how you cultivate on a daily basis. Don't worry, I won't let you do this for nothing. As payment, how about I teach you a sword technique I created myself? A self-created sword technique. Shuren looked at Xishan in total shock, his mind racing a mile a minute. Even though he knew Xishan was super talented, he never expected that Xishan had already gotten to the point of creating his own sword technique. The gap between them is way too big. Xishan saw Shuren's reaction and said proudly, That's right. The technique I used to beat those fellow disciples yesterday is exactly the one I created myself. So wanna learn it? Shuren was obviously tempted. But then he froze immediately. He said with a helpless look on his face, But senior brother Ye, do you really think I can learn it? Xishan's face froze when he heard that, and he realized the problem too. He stroked his chin and thought for a second, then said, I think it's definitely possible. My sword technique is super simple. It only has 3 moves, not like those fancy, useless sword techniques out there. Let me show it to you. You'll get it right away. After saying that, he summoned his flying sword with a wave and started demonstrating for Shuran. Before, Yizhan had felt cheerful and easygoing, even a little goofy sometimes. But the second he grabbed his sword, his entire aura changed instantly. His gaze became totally calm, staring straight ahead. Everything in the world looked like a blank piece of paper to him. Nothing he couldn't cut through. There was no overwhelming aura. But the moment he swung his sword, an intense sense of pressure exploded from him instantly. His figure disappeared in an instant, and when he reappeared, countless giant rocks around him suddenly turned to dust. Then sword energy raged everywhere. A stab, a horizontal slash, a downward chop. 3 moves total for the whole technique. Every move is an all-out attack with no backup plan. Watching Xiezum demonstrate his sword technique, Shuran felt like he was watching a brilliant young prodigy, ready to take on the entire world. So dazzling. How's that? Pretty easy, right? After demonstrating the sword technique, Xishan turned to look at Shuran. He asked with a smile, It is really easy, but I can't learn it. Shuran shook his head. He could tell at a glance. Xishan's sword skill relies on his momentum, will, and Tao. It has little to do with the sword technique itself, only with his indomitable attitude of daring to duel the heavens. Can you bring out the sword skill's full power? Obviously, he doesn't have that kind of mindset. Xizhen looked hesitant. He seemed to be thinking about how to persuade Shuran. But right then, Shuran took the initiative to speak up. Forget the sword technique. I have something else. I'd like to ask you for a favor, senior brother. What is it? Tell me about it, junior brother. As long as it's within my power, I won't say no. Hishan looked at him with interest and said, Shuran cupped his fist in greeting when he heard that. It's not a big deal. I just hope you can suppress your cultivation level and spar with me for a bit. Junior brother, you want me to be your sparring partner? Shishan looked at him with a shocked expression. Exactly, is that okay? I have no problem with that. But are you sure about this, junior brother? I'm a sword cultivator, after all. Plus, you've probably heard of the path I follow. I never strike without hurting someone. Even if I suppress my cultivation, it's still very dangerous. After hearing that, Shuran was silent for a moment. Then he took a deep breath. He stared straight at Zishan and spoke seriously. Senior brother, I want to face life and death directly. Please. Seeing Shuran's resolute attitude, Zishan immediately figured out what he was planning. Does he want to change the fact that he's bad at fighting? By facing life and death directly. That's not an easy thing to pull off. Zishan looked at Shuran and nodded and said, I get it. Let's start right now. With that, before Shuran could react, his figure vanished instantly. Shuran's vision suddenly went black, and he lost consciousness right after. When he came to his senses, he felt a sharp pain between his eyebrows, and a trickle of blood slowly dripped down. Then his face went pale, his whole body went limp, and he gasped heavily for air. In that moment just now, he felt like he had actually died. His heart and consciousness both stopped, and he felt like he was falling into an abyss. He couldn't even struggle if he wanted to. It wasn't until he woke up that he felt the fear belatedly. That's enough, right? Shishan glanced at Shuran, who was limp on the ground, gasping for air, and said calmly. Then he silently put away the long sword in his hand, turned around and got ready to leave. Senior brother, wait, do it again. Right then, Shuran's weak voice rang out. Siyam made a confused sound and looked at Shuran in surprise. What? You want to keep going? After hearing Shuran's extremely firm answer of keep going, Shizen was even more shocked. In his opinion, after going through that experience just now, Shuran should have given up already. After all, everyone knows, facing life and death directly can unlock your potential. If that's the case, then why can't everyone practice like this and turn into a genius? But the truth is exactly the opposite. This training method doesn't create geniuses. Instead, it makes countless cultivators' Dao hearts break, and they can't pick themselves back up for a very long time. There is great terror between life and death. That's no joke. Most people, after going through it once, don't have the courage to go through it a second time. Junior brother Shu, I didn't actually strike for real just now. I just let you get a little taste of that feeling. If I actually attacked for real, it would be countless times more terrifying than before. This isn't a game. I'm afraid after you experience that, you'll never be able to stand up again. Are you sure you still want to continue? At your age, junior brother, you just need to focus on improving your cultivation. You don't even need to fight. There's no need to push yourself so hard on this. As for the rumors in the sect, you can just ignore them completely. He meant every word of that. After all, in his eyes, with Shuran's natural talent, it was already impressive enough that he recovered from that earlier strike. Continuing might end up ruining him. Please continue, senior brother. Shuran staggered to his feet from the ground, took a deep breath, steadied himself, fisted his hands in salute towards Zishin, spoke in a firm tone. Everyone fights for their own pride. As a transmigrator, born with longevity Dao bones. But in every single aspect, I'm worse than the locals of this world. I can't even keep up with regular, ordinary people. How could he ever accept that? Maybe just like Zishan said. I only need to focus on raising my cultivation level. As long as I stay in the Xuan King sect, no danger will ever come to me. Plus, I have the longevity Dao fruit. If I just live through endless years, whether it's cultivation level or divine powers and Dao techniques, they can all be improved gradually. But he doesn't want to go on like this anymore. He can be ordinary, but he can never be mediocre. The encouraging words from Yue Qingyu a few days ago still feels like a thorn, stuck deep in his heart. A person who got criticized because of him ended up comforting him instead. That really made his cheeks burn with shame. Who says centenarians can't have a sense of honor? If that were true, the cultivation world is full of people who lived for hundreds or thousands of years, Wouldn't it be totally lifeless? Where would all the conflicts come from? Honor has nothing to do with age. It only depends on what's in your heart. Shishan looked at Shuran, who was dead set on his decision. After a moment of silence, nodded slightly, and said, I get it. Since you say so, junior brother, then I'll grant your wish. Right after, he summoned his flying sword again, gestured towards Shuran, and said softly, Here I come. Only when Sishan actually made his move, Shuran finally understood why he could defeat 3 core disciples with 1 sword strike. The moment Sishan held his sword and looked at him, he felt like everything from his body to his soul was locked on by a terrifying aura. His mind lost control over his body. He tried so hard to move his body, but right now it felt like he was surrounded by countless, cold, glistening sword blades. All his hair stood on end. His skin was stinging faintly. His body was resisting on instinct. It felt like if he moved even a little, he would get pierced by countless blades instantly. That thought flooded his mind. Just as he was standing there completely stiff, waiting in fear and anxiety for those sword blades to leave, Jiazem moved. All color faded from his vision in an instant. Only an extremely dazzling sword light flashed past. Then he felt his body was pierced by countless sharp blades. A burning stabbing pain rushed straight to his brain, and he blacked out immediately. There's no way to dodge Sishan's sword, excuse my offense. Looking at Shu Ran, who fell to the ground with his eyes closed, Shishan sheathed his sword and saluted with fisted hands, said softly, Maybe this time. After junior brother Shu falls, he will never be able to cultivate again. Hishan sighed inwardly. He was the one who destroyed Shu Ran's Dao heart and future with his own hands, but he didn't feel much guilty about it. As a sword cultivator, he can't refuse someone's request for a sword duel. Glanced again at the man on the ground. The immobile Shu Ran, Yizhan shook his head, put away his sword, and got ready to leave. He was in a really lousy mood right now. He originally came to see how someone like Shu Ran, with mediocre talent, cultivates, but because of Shu Ran's request, all his interest was ruined. He had zero appreciation for people like Shu Ran, who try to trigger their instincts by facing death head-on. None at all. Instead, it wiped out all the good impressions he had of Shu Ran. Right now, all he feels for Shu Ran is indifference. He admires people who are tough and refuse to be ordinary, but he hates people who are arrogant and full of themselves.